Tom. Next up is our longtime friend and colleague, Zoltán Kész, Director of Operations at Civitas, Hungary. He'll be talking to us today about how Putin's lapdog is trolling the EU. Orban's Hungary is the odd one in the club. Welcome, Zoltán.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Stacy. Oceania has always been at war with East Asia. Since the beginning of your life, since the beginning of the party, since the beginning of history, the war has continued without a break, always the same war. This is a fact, as described in Orwell's 1984. Ladies and gentlemen, 5 years ago, I had the honor to give the keynote speech at the Europe Liberty Forum in Budapest. In my speech, I tried to describe the main principle of populism, which is gaining power once and never, ever letting it go, reshaping democracy, and deconstructing the rule of law step by step. At the time, I thought that it was also a fact. I even came up with a theory in which I said that the opposite of populism is taking responsibility. 5 years have passed, and in my country, things have become worse. In Hungary, the majority of the population believes that the United States and Ukraine are responsible for the war. They are presented this news as part of the Putinist, Orbanist propaganda, and they think it is a fact. For them, it is also a fact that their miserable livelihoods are to be attacked and destroyed by Brussels. People who are fed by the machinery of Russian-type propaganda believe whatever is repeated over and over again, just like in 1984. Let me tell you a personal story which taught me a lesson for life. Some of you may know that in 2015, I was the one who ended the constitutional majority of Viktor Orban as I won a by-election in a district where the opposition parties were too scared to have a candidate, so I won as an independent. I thought that taking responsibility this way was the best to combat the illiberal regime of Viktor Orban. I thought that by being a member of parliament, I would be able to bring about at least a little change. I was wrong. When the elections of 2018 came about, I was very optimistic. A couple of weeks before the election, I was up in the polls by 10%. Then reality slapped me in the face. The propaganda machinery started a smear campaign against me, accusing me of receiving millions from a man. They even presented a photo, which circulated in the Hungarian media, as a proof of my guilt, as the fact to prove that I got the bribe. The problem, ladies and gentlemen, was that it wasn't me in the picture. Of the two men, neither was me. Days later, I was on the campaign trail when a man started shouting at me, claiming that I received all that money. I confronted him with the photo and asked him to show which of the two men was me. He said he didn't care because it was announced on TV. I asked him if he believed his own eyes or the TV. The TV, he said. That's when I knew that I was going to lose the election. Does it ring a bell? Does it remind you of something very similar going on in the Russian media? And there's another similarity between the regimes set up by Putin and his very favorite lapdog, Viktor Orban, who is the Trojan horse in the European Union. Just like Putin, Orban likes to control his own opposition, likes to have his pawns in the different parties so that nothing escapes his attention. So let me go back to responsibility. I have to admit that I'm also responsible for not seeing it coming. Without hurting anyone here, I have to say that we are all responsible. We failed to realize how to fight back. You know, many Western politicians have resorted to the policy of appeasement, which has never turned out to be a good solution in history. Even a couple of days ago, President Macron said not to humiliate Russia. Well, this narrative has actually brought us to where we are right now. Just like Angela Merkel and other Western politicians who continuously appeased Orban and helped him fund his illiberal regime from money from German, Dutch, and other European Union taxpayers. We, in the think tank world, have also failed to realize that in spite of all the efforts that we have put into the very traditional think tank solutions, we didn't turn to what I call do tanks in Eastern Europe. I personally also failed to realize that more activism would have been needed in order to avoid what we are facing right now. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know what differentiates free people from slaves? The answer was already given by John Steinbeck in East of Eden. He goes back to the Bible and picks only one word. And this one Hebrew word is timshel. It means that thou mayest, that is, you may. You may have a choice. And this might be the most important message I have for you today, as we have the choice to decide how to act. We have the choice to act instead of just talking theory. People in oppressed regimes don't have a choice. The Russian soldier sent to the front lines doesn't have the choice. People in the occupied Ukrainian territories have no choice. Hungarian voters, fed systematically by propaganda, have no choice. But we do. I urge you to act according to the best of your abilities. Otherwise, we will all live in a world where facts don't matter. Thank you very much.